Chelsea are going to be without Liam Delap for another significant period of time. And if rumours are to be believed, Bluecoat are looking to do something drastic to address the striker situation in the winter transfer window. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC, and the topic of today is strikers. Now, this is going to be more of a light news video. I've got something in the works that I'm going to go really in depth about the stats and the stuff that we're going to talk about today, but we're just going to cover the surface of the idea today, whether we like it, whether we don't like it, and just look at a couple of the stats in isolation to see if the desperate move that we might make is something that we should look at actually doing. But guys, before we get into it, if you're enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, so Liam Delap is out for 6 to 8 weeks. Again, that is the third time this season that we have lost a player for 6 to 8 weeks, and this one's a mad one. It's really difficult, isn't it? Because it feels like we've only just got Liam Delap back from that hamstring injury that he got right at the start of the season in the West Ham game, I think it was. He just sprinted a little bit too hard, pulled his hamstring, and then we were without him for all of this time. João Pedro has had the majority of the heavy burden of completely covering the striker role on his own. In that time, we've also employed Tyreek George several times, who, weirdly enough, looks to be one of our better finishers. And more recently, Mark Yu has started making his way back into the squad. But, truth be told, no one is putting him away like they should, man. So Chelsea are in a bit of a rough and tumble in terms of form at the moment. But we were recently second, right? And everyone's title challenge. The reason we were even able to get there is because when things have been going well, the goals have been being spread out across the team. Pedro Neto, Enzo Fernandez, Esteval Willian, João Pedro has chipped in with a couple. Even Moises Caicedo, actually. So, you know, a lot of our players are currently on 3 or 4 goals, which is the reason that we've been able to get through a lot of these games and why we've been doing so well. What hasn't been the reason we've been doing so well is we've got an absolute bagsman, just a marksman who is just getting him in the back of the net all the time, a predatory, lethal striker, and it just doesn't look like that's going to be the case anytime soon, either does it, unless the rumours are to be believed. So just before we get into the rumour, without doing anything particularly drastic, we're going to be looking at the next 2 months, which takes us into February, near enough, do you know what I mean, without Liam Delap. Now, it's not exactly like we're going to miss Liam Delap's goals because he's only got 1, but what we have already seen is we can't necessarily afford to put all of that pressure on João Pedro to be the number 9 because he just isn't putting them away. Cole Palmer coming back may ease that goal-scoring burden, but at the same time, you would have thought if we're going to try and salvage our season, then we're going to need someone who can score at least 7 to 10 goals in the second half of the season, and you know that would be infinitely better than what we've already had. So the rumour is Bluecoat are potentially looking to pull the trigger on bringing Emmanuel Emegha in from Strasbourg in January instead of waiting until the end of the season. It was a bit of a weird one with Emegha. So there was rumours in and around the summer transfer window that we were gonna get him, and then it was like a month after the season started, or maybe even just a few weeks after the season started, that Chelsea announced that they were going to buy Emmanuel Emegha. So I think the contract has been agreed in terms of player to club, but what we hadn't done yet is obviously exchanged any money. This understandably led to outcries from the fan base, so at Strasbourg, who weren't particularly happy. Banners have started going up and they're not very happy with Emmanuel Emegha about signing this deal with us. Because at the end of the day, he was really good for them last season, 14 goals in the league, and was becoming a bit of a fan favourite. But desperate times call for desperate measures as far as the Chelsea situation goes. Now, while Strasbourg may not be as annoyed about this as they might have been a little while ago, they've got Panicelli, who is absolutely killing it at Strasbourg this season. Emmanuel Emegha actually had a little lengthy spell, it was like a month or something, but he had a spell on the sidelines, and Panicelli just came in and started absolutely banging him away. So, while yes, of course, they will miss Emmanuel Emegha, they have a striker that arguably is even better, ready to just jump in and take that spot already. So, bringing in Emmanuel Emegha to Chelsea in January, is that a good idea? Now, on the face of it, yes, is the answer to that question, and I'll get into the stats why in a minute. It's a strange one, isn't it? Because the deal's technically already done, other than the exchange at the moment. This is one of the things with the Blueco situation, with us owning Strasbourg and stuff. We can do these kind of deals. We don't have to worry about someone swooping in for Emmanuel Emegha, do you know what I mean? Because Blueco will just say, no, we're not going to sell him to anyone else. We're going to sell him to Chelsea because we own both clubs. So, yeah, like I say, man, on the face of it, And the stats say, yes, it's a good idea. There are some little caveats about why this might not be a good idea. The most obvious one being Emmanuel Emegha was recently suspended for disciplinary reasons and missed their last game. I think it was against Lille. Those reasons weren't actually announced. All Strasbourg came out and said is Emmanuel Emegha has not been in keeping with the club's culture and philosophy. Therefore, we've decided to ban him for one game. So... big ego, attitude problems, I don't know. Those are the intangibles, right? Those are the absolute intangibles. But we'll get into the stats now and why this probably is a good idea from our perspective. So I've made a handy-dandy little table comparing the very, very, very basic stats about goal scoring of João Pedro, Liam Delap and Emmanuel Emegha in all competitions this season so far. Forgetting about last season, just this season. And here it is. So, João Pedro up top. 18 appearances, 4 goals, 23 shots, 11 shots on target, 47 shot percent accuracy. Now, that is not enough. Do you know what I mean? Now, what I haven't factored into this is assists. João Pedro has got 3 assists as well, which is good, but ultimately what we want out of a striker is the ability to score goals, isn't it? Liam Delap, 11 appearances, 1 goal against a 10-man Barcelona, 15 shots, 6 shots on target with a 40% shot accuracy. And then we go to Emmanuel Emegha, who, like Liam Delap, has spent time out this season. Must have been a bit more than a month, actually. Maybe it's about 2 months. Also on 11 appearances, 7 goals, 25 shots, 14 shots on target, and a 56% shot accuracy. So the proof is just in the pudding, isn't it? The proof is in the pudding. Well, okay, I say that. Caveats. Obviously, he was injured for a bit. It's Ligue 1 from France as well, which is not necessarily as difficult a league as the Premier League in general, but you have to think that even, he coming up against like a reasonable Ligue 1 opposition is going to be the same as coming up against lower or mid-tier Premier League opposition, isn't it? The gap is wide in terms of the top clubs, I think, but the middle clubs probably not so much. And what this tells you instantly, like I say, it's just there, man. So Emmanuel Emegha has made the same amount of appearances as Liam Delap, but he has managed more goals, more shots on target, and more shots in general than João Pedro, who has played 7 more games than he has. So, I don't know, man. Like I say, in terms of like getting someone in now, he's going to be the cheapest option because we're not going to pay over the odds for him because the deal the amount of money will already have been agreed. I've got no idea how much it's going to be, but we're not going to get fleeced by Strasbourg. This is one of the benefits of the multi-club model, right? Is, it's not going to be like Strasbourg aren't going to turn around and be like, we want 80 million for him, and we will only have to pay minimum what his market value is, and we will probably put some on top of that as well, just to make sure that Strasbourg can reinforce their squad as and when they need to, because ultimately we're all part of the same blue family, right? But yeah, man, I mean, what this is in particular is damning for João Pedro and Liam Delap. Looking at Emmanuel Emegha's stats, 7 goals in 11 appearances is great. 25 shots, 14 shots on target, 56 shot percent accuracy is good. It's good, do you know what I mean? But what this is more is damning about how bad Liam Delap and João Pedro have been. Liam Delap, in particular, you would instantly think, oh, well, do you know what? We'll give Liam Delap a bit of more of a break because he spent a long time out injured. Yes, but he's actually had the same amount of appearances as Emmanuel Emegha. Now, there is going to be some discrepancy in the minutes there because I imagine Liam Delap will have come on a little bit more than Emmanuel Emegha's probably been starting. So Emmanuel Emegha, when I do the big breakdown of all 3 of these guys, if this rumour takes off a little bit more, we'll really, really get into that. But just on the face of it, same amount of appearances as Liam Delap, but more goals than João Pedro. Do you know what I mean? So it's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. Does it destabilise Strasbourg when they're having a reasonably good season? I don't know, because Panicelli is doing so well. I did a video a little while ago saying, have we bought the wrong striker from Strasbourg? Do you know what I mean? We can't go in for Panicelli as well, because at that point you are just ripping the soul out of Strasbourg, and it's ridiculous. We can't be doing that. But Emmanuel Emegha looks like he could be a reasonable solution for the rest of our season, at least. Now, so I've talked about him before in the comments of a couple of my videos and stuff, and I've had a few discussions with YouTube commenters, and a couple of guys are like, is Emmanuel Emegha better than what we've got now? Yes. Is he good enough to win us a title? Don't know. Now, Emmanuel Emegha is like 22, 23 years old, so you'd have to think that he can build on top of this. But ultimately, he has, he got 14 goals in the league for them last season, which was really, really good. He also gets a couple of assists and stuff as well. He's a lot more akin to Nicholas Jackson than he is João Pedro or Liam Delap as well. He's kind of like, he drifts out wide, he can get the odd assist, he can be creative, he can link up and play with other creative players as well. And I think the thing is, if you think about January, right, so Fabrizio Romano's come out and said it. All of the news kind of pertaining to Chelsea's winter market is basically saying that we're going to be quiet at the end of the day. But how quiet can we be, man, when you got to think Tosin Adarabioyo and Axel Disasi may well be on their way out. Tosin because that's going to be easy profit. Axel Disasi because we just need to get him out of the club. So chances are we may be going for another centre-back. And with Liam Delap being out for 2 months and also only having scored 1 goal against a 10-man Barcelona in 11 appearances so far, we know, looking at João Pedro's stats, that we can't afford to put the weight of the number 9 on him for the rest of the season because he's only got 4 goals in 18 appearances. And yes, I know he's got a couple of assists, but we are talking about a striker that can get goals. It's risky, man. It's really, really risky to say, no, do you know what? We'll stick with Mark Yu. We'll play Tyreek George a little bit more and just stick with João Pedro up top. Do you know what I mean? Mark Yu hasn't even scored for us yet. I think he's got 1 assist. He does come on with buckets of energy, which is really good, but he hasn't proved that he's good enough to rely on this heavily. Do you know what I mean? Especially where we're getting to. Do you know what I mean? If you think about our league position and stuff at the moment, we are playing Everton next in the Premier League, and that's now a 6-pointer. It's like this is the madness of the Premier League this season. We are tussling with the likes of Crystal Palace, Everton, and Sunderland at the moment to keep our position. There are so few points between 4th place and 12th place, 10th to 12th place. Do you know what I mean? Is any games in between there can see massive, massive jumps, and if we don't sort ourselves out, it is going to be really, really easy for us to drop a lot of points. And if we do drop points, more points than we've already dropped, because we've already dropped, 5 points? We've already dropped 5 points in the last 2 games. If we carry on dropping points at that kind of level, we're really, really going to have a massive second half of the season to try and even make sure we're back in for a Champions League run. I was just kind of hoping this season that Champions League was going to be... getting into the Champions League was going to be easier than it was last season. I expected us to get into the top 4 without having to go to a down-to-the-wire game against Nottingham Forest at the last day of the season like we did last season. But at the moment, our form is so poor, and without Liam Delap to rotate and give us more options, and I say give us more options, he scored 1 goal. It's just not good enough, man. He scored 12 goals in the Premier League last season, and there's no way he's getting that this season. I mean, he will have spent 4 months of the season out at the end of the day, do you know what I mean? Which is, 30-odd% of the season when it comes down to it. But like I say, looking at Liam Delap's performance when he has been here, he hasn't connected, he hasn't settled in, arguably hasn't had a chance to because of the injury, and that is only going to continue to be the case because he's out for 6 to 8 weeks, and then he's going to have to build up again. Do you know what I mean? He will have missed so much of the season with injury. This is a really weird one as well. It's a shoulder injury. So the one small positive about the Liam Delap injury at the moment is that it's not necessarily something that's going to reoccur and be a problem. Do you know what I mean? It's like man's hurt his shoulder, so unlikely that that's going to cause him as much of an issue as his hamstring one potentially could have done vis-a-vis Reece James. But yeah, man, Liam Delap has just not... He's not done enough. João Pedro is not currently doing enough. And what's going to happen now is João Pedro is just going to get played over and over and over and over and over again. He's just going to become the de facto number 9 for the rest of December at least. Mark Yu will probably get some starts. And unless Mark Yu explodes in form over the next, 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to have to look at a striker situation in January, man. And ultimately... January's so hard for purchases in general because everyone puts a January tax and an emergency tax, right? Because everyone's like, right, you desperately need this. So this player's worth 50 mil, but we're not selling him for less than 80 because the market dictates we can sell him for that because that's what you need him for. This is, like I said, this is one of the massive benefits of the Blue Co thing. From a Chelsea fan's perspective, forgetting about for a second the culture and the dissatisfaction of the Strasbourg fans, but ultimately, we can go to Strasbourg and buy Emmanuel Emegha for his book value, for what he's worth, and add a little bit on top without getting absolutely fleeced. And this is a deal we'd already agreed to do anyway, so it's not going to have changed based on his performance, do you know what I mean? Which is reasonably good. At the end of the day, Emmanuel Emegha could have been on for a 20-goal season if he'd carried on. He's already got half of the goal. Well, actually, this isn't all competitions, but I think all of those goals maybe were in the league. I'll have to, again, I'll look into that in the big breakdown, the big striker breakdown that we're going to do in a couple of days. So, guys, I need to know what you think about this one, man. I need to know what you think about this one. It feels a little bit desperate, but at the same time, we kind of are a little bit desperate, aren't we? Like, I remember a little while ago being linked to Ivan Toney, do you know what I mean, on loan. It's like, would I rather bring in Emmanuel Emegha now, a player that we were already going to buy, rather than going loan Ivan Toney? Yes, absolutely I would. Absolutely I would. The one, I guess, slightly worrying thing about Emmanuel Emegha is that he has spent a reasonable amount of time on the sidelines this season with injury already, but the positives seem to outweigh the negatives for me. He is an international. He is bagging goals. He is reliable. He's obviously got a lot of fire and a lot of character. Another negative caveat potentially is attitude stuff, but I imagine that to be less of a problem. Do you know what I mean? Because you're going to come to Chelsea at the end of the day, and it's like there's going to be no time for that. If Strasbourg are banning you from playing because of your attitude, like that's just not going to fly at Chelsea either. Do you know what I mean? You know, owned by the same company at the end of the day. Bluco will have had some involvement in that, I would have thought, even if they were just signing it off. But we are desperate. We are looking like we're going to be desperate, and it's a shame we can't just do it now. Do you know what I mean? We can't just bring him in and to get us through December. But at the same time, if we bring him in January, I think he's probably, based on his performance so far this season, albeit having been injured for a long time. Like I say, the stats are there, man. 11 games, which is the same amount of appearances that Liam Delap has had, albeit probably slightly more minutes, but more goals than João Pedro. And he's got 2 assists as well. So 9 goal involvements to João Pedro's 7 in much less appearances at the end of the day. So, guys, let me know what you think. Emmanuel Emegha, bring him in January, yes or no? I don't think he's necessarily going to come in and completely hit the ground running. Maybe he does, but you got to think he's going to score more than 4 goals in half a season, isn't he? I absolutely hope so anyway. But, guys, I will start wrapping the video up there. Thank you very much for sticking around until the end if you did. Tomorrow night is Atalanta versus Chelsea in the Champions League, and I expect this to be a little bit more of a safer game than we have done because Moises Caicedo's allowed to play. I've forgotten my usual predicted 11 for that game because I really, really wanted to dig into the nuance of the striker situation. But tell me, who do you think is going to play in the Atalanta game tomorrow in the Champions League? And do you think we're going to win? Get your score predictions in the comments. Nice one, guys. I hope you all have an absolutely wicked day. I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.